Hi there. So, as everyone here I'm sure knows, the Supreme Court for the longest time has been an agent for extreme nationwide change. And I think that is a reason that we've seen just the despicable way in which Brett Kavanaugh, who was recently appointed, the way he was treated by a lot of Senate Democrats. And given just the way that we see a lot of this partisan
Rancor, yeah.
do you think that it's time that we sort of pull back the influence that the Supreme Court has? Because I'm concerned that we're going to have to put justices behind glass like the Pope or something.
Well, I mean, I've always been in favor of curbing the influence of the Supreme Court. I mean, I wrote my third-year paper at Harvard Law School on the idea that judicial review as currently practiced was never intended by the founders and actually skews the system of incentives between the governmental branches. The idea that there was a final word on the Constitution, and it would come from these guys who are appointed for life, and they would be the caddies under the tree determining what the Constitution said. I never thought that that was a good, like, I'm one of these legal, these legal believers that Marbury versus Madison was wrongly decided. That it's actually an overstep by the courts. Now, with that said, I think that people do overstate the extent to which the court has actually had an impact. There are a few key cases in which the court has had an impact, and most notably Roe v. Wade. But typically, the court tends to rubber stamp already developing public opinion. So I will take, for example, Obergefell, which is a terrible, terrible decision, but was also a trend that was already happening across the country. Marriage, for example. There's a good book called The Hallowed Hope or The Hollow Hope, rather, by Gerald Rosenberg, University of Chicago professor, all about how people sort of misattribute social change to the Supreme Court in a way that is not fully justifiable. With that said, the Supreme Court has way too much power. I think that there are certain changes that could pretty easily be made. For example, I think the court can be limited in its jurisdiction, or at least appellate courts can be limited in their jurisdiction simply with acts of Congress. It doesn't require a constitutional amendment.